Here we are again. Right. 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 So we are on. Steve just needed to pop out for a quick poo. So we'll have to wait for him. Hopefully he's going to wash his hands. Chris, we went out Blu-ray shopping today. There's Chris in the corner. And Chris got a couple of steelbooks while we're waiting for Steve to come back in. Tell us what you got, Chris.
I got a Cliffhanger and a Blade Runner Final Cut.
Yeah, we waited for a couple of CX, and they had a couple of reasonable steelbooks. Nice, quite good.
Selection, actually.
Yeah. So yes, we will be just a second. That's what I say.
Is it working?
It is working, although I've only got the basic camera on, so I don't have a fit to toggle between the two of them. We've only got one person watching currently. So okay. Who have we got watching then? Arnold Schwarzenegger live stream. Let me bring up his filmography and then we will discuss. So have your Arnold Schwarzenegger questions, comments, and we will be discussing Arnie in all his glory, going through his filmography. And we won't spend too much time on obviously ones that people aren't too fussed with, but obviously we'll talk more in detail about obviously other Schwarzenegger movies that are sort of more popular. So we should really start with I suppose we should start with Pumping Iron, really, which was yes, this is the correct string, Matt. This is not the. I've got a better camera, so I know it's really fuzzy, but I cannot get it to stream. Anyway, we won't go into the technical problems. But yeah, so we'll look at Schwarzenegger. So Pumping Iron. I think has anyone watched Pumping Iron?
I've never seen it.
No,
seen clips.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that was kind of. I think that showed his.
If you're into bodybuilding.
Yeah, bodybuilding. Not something anyone is particularly interested in. Carlos, who is a bodybuilder, may have watched it, but obviously then he went on to star in Hercules in New York, which I did own at one point, and it's not very good. They've overdubbed his voice, and it's super cheesy, and it's a real B movie. And then we've got a couple of other sort of like small appearances: The Long Goodbye, Happy Anniversary and Goodbye, Stay Hungry, Streets of San Francisco, Cactus Jack, Scavenger Hunt, James Manville Story. But we'll start really with Conan the Barbarian. So Conan the Barbarian, arguably, would you say this was the film that discovered Schwarzenegger?
I would say it was the thing that put him on the map, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Good film.
So this Conan obviously came out, and this was a film that was obviously much copied. We had loads of kind of like barbarian films after this, including a Conan sequel and even a Arnold Schwarzenegger similar movie. What do you think of? What do you guys think of Conan, the Barbarian specifically? It's quite quotable. I actually think it's quite a dark film in a lot of ways.
James L. Jones.
James L. Jones, yeah, is the bad guy. Tulsa Doom, I think his name is.
Yes.
He won a Golden Globe for Stay Hungry. Did he really? Jesus Christ. I didn't know that. Fair enough.
He's a bodybuilder, isn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like Conan. What do you prefer, Conan the Destroyer or Conan the Barbarian?
First one.
Yeah, I have seen some people say that they actually prefer Conan the Destroyer.
Yeah, I think it's more.
Is he in Red Sonia?
He is in Red Sonia, which we'll come on to. Yeah. Not even briefly. He's in it a reasonable amount.
I can't remember. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that was originally going to be a Conan spin-off.
Yeah.
So Conan the Barbarian came out in '82, and I think it's quite a slow film in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think the sequel was a bit more fast-paced. Possibly that's why people maybe prefer that one.
Aaron said he first saw Conan, and that's actually what got him into bodybuilding. I think Schwarzenegger's probably got a lot of people into bodybuilding, to be honest with you. I mean, he didn't. I suppose, to be fair, it wasn't a bad acting, really, considering he's meant to be a barbarian. But I suppose it wasn't a bad, necessarily too bad in Conan the Barbarian. I didn't think. Obviously, Conan the Destroyer was a little bit more light, I would say. Obviously, I really like Grace Jones in Conan the Destroyer.
Probably a little bit more.
I prefer the first one myself.
I think the first one is more groundbreaking. The second one feels more like a Conan rip-off in a way. And then Matt says, all the males in my family got into bodybuilding because of Conan. Yeah, it's obviously pretty influential, and then obviously we had to destroy it a little bit later, and there was meant to be a third movie, Conan the King, I believe, and obviously he's still saying he's going to make that. Whether he does or not is going to be a different question.
Mid-70s.
But I suppose probably what most people will know Arnold with and or associate Arnold with is going to be the Terminator franchise. The original one that started in 1984, obviously directed by a young James Cameron. And this was arguably, I think, the first real blockbuster, because I don't think Conan it was a hit, it wasn't like a mega hit. Was Terminator, which is ultimately a B movie, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see King Conan. We're going to come on to Commando, but that's actually a sequel that I would like to see Arnie in. But Terminator, I really love the original Terminator film. Even though Schwarzenegger's hair is different as the film goes on, which was a big thing.
Yeah, I like it. It's got that kind of it's quite dark compared to like the later ones.
I'm going to check these speakers out, I think.
Compared to Terminator 2.
Yeah, a lot of people like Terminator 2 the better.
It's almost like a kind of like a horror film, a little bit, if you ask me.
I think it works with being low budget. I think that gives it its charm in some ways.
Yeah, and you could argue the effects are a little cheesy now. They were going to cast O.J. Simpson in the Terminator at one point. I did hear that, and I think Lance Henriksen originally wanted to he actually
they did some actual artwork.
Yeah, they did. He did actually kind of He apparently put like cigarette on his teeth.
They actually did artwork based around him for like concept art.
So Aaron says there was going to be a cast O.J. Simpson as yet. So then Matt says the thing about Arnie is that he's literally the American dream come true. Immigrant with nothing but muscles turned into the biggest action star in the world. Yes. The 80s were all about Arnie, and I think he was one of the true icons where you went to see a film to see the Arnold Schwarzenegger film, regardless of whatever the film was. And that is the large part down to, I think, Terminator. And I think to date, the only villainous role he's played, if I'm right. It's the only time he's played a bad guy. I wish he would do it again.
Mr. Freeze. That
guy. 1970 DJ says Freaky review, as in the film Freaky. O.J. Simpson is the real Terminator. Yes, he is. Maybe he took that inspiration a little, a little too literally there. I mean, has anyone got any issues with the Terminator? I mean, anyone don't like it or like at least out the series? I prefer this to Terminator 2.
Yeah, I do.
Even though I think Terminator 2 is obviously far more of a technical achievement, and obviously that was pioneering in the sort of special effects department. But I actually prefer the stripped down story of Terminator movies. And actually, because these two here, I've known for many years, and I remember, I think that you saw it before me because you were telling. I remember you telling me about it. One of you were telling me about it, and you were telling me whether his thing was just "fuck you, arsehole." That scene there where he's kind of selecting all the kind of the options and stuff. Yeah, But it was a great movie. I was kind of young, obviously, when that came out. I was only 10 when that came out. So after Terminator, he actually made Red Sonja, and his character was called Calidor, which was now Red Sonja, obviously another creation from Robert E. Howard, I think it is, and that he was originally going to be a Conan, but I think there was rights issues there. Terminator is perfect, and then Aaron says, "Yeah, can't fault the first two Terminator films." I think Terminator 2 goes on for a little bit long. I personally feel
It's a good film.
it is good. I don't know. I do like it, but I prefer the first one.
I actually quite like the third one as well.
We'll come on to the third one. That's quite the contrarian point of view there, Steve.
But then I don't like some of the others after that.
So, what do you think of Red Sonja? Has anyone seen Red Sonja? I think it gets forgotten about.
I can't even remember it. I've watched it
literally
for years.
Literally.
It is a forgettable one, but it's in the same vein as The Destroyer.
I think Bridget Nielsen was quite well cast as Sonia herself, although it's like they haven't done any favours with her haircut, massive mullet. I think it had a cheapness to it, had almost like a Doctor Who feel to it. I think the Red Sonja movie, and it's a shame that because his character was practically the same as Conan. Matt says Bean versus Arnie is the best. Michael Bean, yeah, because he was just kind of like a regular guy. Let's talk about Commando, John Matrix. I've seen this. Commando's actually come up. There's been this kind of tag that's been going around, like the 10 favourite movies from 10. Your first favourite movie from 10 different genres, and a lot of people actually put Commando as their number one action movie. Commando is a movie that I think would absolutely benefit from having a sequel. So if Arnie did a sequel now, and it was years after, and his daughter, played by Alyssa Milano, whatever her name is, she could well join the military, and that they could have been. I think it would be great. So it's kind of like a Rambo ripoff, arguably.
It's a good film. I like Commando.
Yeah. It's a really fun movie, and it's one of those OTT. And I've got to say,
it's very the test of time. I think. I don't think it's.
Yeah, I like it. Good film.
I think it's aged quite well.
Yeah, I would say that's peak Arnie's fitness as well. I would say Commando, maybe Predator actually.
I like it. He's got the rocket launcher. He's like.
So yeah. So Matt says the villain's named in Commando. That was played. It was Bennett was the bad guy, and that was played by Vernon Wells. Yeah, who he interviewed. Matt, you interviewed. You interviewed Vernon Wells.
Sully as well as the other guy. And he drops off.
Yeah.
I said I learned. Yeah.
The Dutch film buff. He was in Mad Max 2. Yes, he was indeed. I think Commando was his first or one of his earliest American roles. But yeah, he was good. And I heard a little anecdote about him. So the guy, the Vernon Wells, who played the bad guy, he was brought on very last minute because they had actually cast someone else to play Bennett, but the other guy that they cast was a lot smaller, but they didn't have time to remake the costume. So that is why Bennett's costume is really tight and small. It's because it was actually made for a different actor. So it almost like that's why he's kind of got this little crop top chainmail thing on, because it was actually. I got to say, fair play for him for doing that. To be honest with you, quite a few. Aaron says quite a few errors in Commando. Spotting wise, still great. Has anyone seen the director's cut of Commando? You've seen it.
Is that where they take some guy's arm off?
A few more people's limbs off.
It's not a particularly big director's cut. There's not a lot of difference.
No, it's more gory.
The sword blade takes that guy's top of his head off.
Yeah.
There's a lot more sort of gore in it, I suppose you'd say. But yeah, it doesn't really enhance the story or anything. But.
He said, Matt says he hated James because he thought James was feminine. What, James, our friend James, is what you're talking about. Vernon Wells is really an absolute alpha male. He's the most intimidating person I've ever met. I'll tell you a funny story. We did an interview with Vernon Wells, who played Bennett, who was in Commando, and it's on the channel. And we got this random guy to do an interview for us with him. And he asked, because obviously Vernon Wells is Australian, and then this guy said to him, "What do you prefer, Marmite or Vegemite?" And he said, "Well, I won't tell you the answer, but let me just say it kind of like he'd be on cancel culture now if that would get out." It was quite amusing. Dario George, has anyone watched Maggie? The movie itself wasn't really something, but Arnie's acting was great. Yes, we will come on. We're going to go through all these films, so we'll come on to Maggie briefly. That's Phil Buff, more gore in the tool shed scene.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, Jay, really? Did you not? I didn't even know. That's news to me. I really love the soundtrack in Commando. If you've ever seen, on YouTube, there's a Commando parody film called Ninja Commando, which is like a kind of parody film of a mix between Commando and American Ninja. It's actually a French film, but they've kind of made it seem like English. But it's really good. If you've ever seen Kung Fury, you two will know what I'm talking about this, but if you've ever seen Kung Fury, watch Ninja Commando, because it's absolutely hilarious. And they have the same sort of music and stuff like that. But yeah, Commando was actually a movie I wish they would do a sequel for, because I do think that kind of the story would lend itself, particularly because obviously he's older and his daughter's still acting and she's older, and that kind of, she could have got into the military or something like that, and maybe she ends up kind of getting captured. And he's like pretty old now and got to kind of dust himself up.
He needs to he'd have to do it pretty soon because he's knocking on a bit.
He is, but he's still in pretty good shape, to be fair. And then Aaron says Commando is arguably Arnie's purest action film. When we did the challenge where we had to sort of say our 10 best sort of films from each genre, I put Predator as my one, but arguably Predator could be argued that it's a science fiction film rather than an action film. So it was between Predator and Arnie and Commando for me. I do love Commando. It's good. I mean, it's
a great film.
There's so many one-liners in that movie. I mean, that's got to be one of his films where he has the most amount of one-liners, I think. And they
brought the army back, didn't they, into that film?
So next up, we'll talk about Raw Deal. Now, surprisingly, this is a movie that doesn't really have a lot of presence in today. A lot of these films have kind of been released on Blu-ray, and we've had various kind of special editions and stuff like that. But Raw Deal is one that's kind of gets forgotten about. And in Germany, it's called The City Shop. We'll come on to Running Man. We're doing it in kind of chronological order.
Yeah, I think Raw.
I always remember Raw Deal is the trailer on the video. Nobody gives Schwarzenegger a raw deal. I remember that.
Again, I haven't watched that for years.
Again, I think that was more of a. I don't know that. It wasn't that successful at the box office. I don't think. It was one of his.
It was a little bit of not a misstep maybe, but it wasn't quite this. Let me see. I might be able to get the box office numbers. Let's have a look.
Probably not as action orientated, was it?
No, I mean you were quite the fan of it, weren't you, Chris? I remember.
I didn't mind it. It's one of his more forgettable ones, I think.
So the budget of Raw Deal was $8.5 million, and its worldwide gross was 16 million. So obviously this is in a long, obviously back in the 80s. So that's not great, is it? That's not great. If we compare that, let's have a look to Commando. I mean, it doubled its money, but generally speaking, you'd have to kind of you've got to factor in the exhibitors and advertising and stuff. So it probably somewhat broke even. But so if we have a look at Commando's box office in comparison, let's see if we can find it. So Commando was made for around 10 million, and its worldwide gross was just under 60 million. So there you go. You can see the difference in profit there. So yeah, by all accounts, Commando Raw Deal was a little bit.
Did you like that one, Raw Deal?
I did like it. I actually I like Raw Deal, but I don't think it is. I remember more from the trailer than the actual. The actual.
I think it's a bit boring in places. I think that's what it is. It's not such a straight ahead sort of action film, is it?
No, we're talking about Raw Deal rather than Red Heat. Red Heat we'll come on to. Raw, I think, is the City Shark is also is known as. So Aaron says, I was initially disappointed with Raw Deal, but when I was young, but I appreciate it more now. Yeah, it is somewhat of a generic action film to a certain degree. Love the line from Arnie, you shouldn't drink and bake. Matt says, Raw Deal had a great cast, everything considered. It's a fun buddy cop movie. And then Dutch from us do mean Red Heat. No, we are talking about Raw Deal. But we will come on to Red Heat shortly. But we are going to talk about Predator, which I think probably is going to be most people's favourite film.
My favourite Schwarzenegger movie.
Let's have a quick look at the box office of Predator before we kind of go any further.
I remember when I first saw that.
So this one is a 15 million budget, and the worldwide gross was just a shade under 100 million. That is a nice, tidy profit.
Not bad.
Matt was talking about Red Heat. You donut. Yeah, Red Heat was the where he plays a Russian cop. But anyway, we're going to put a pin in Red Heat. So we're going to come on to that. Predator. So this was my number one pick for my number one action film. To me, it's more of an action film than a science fiction film.
But it's kind of a crossover, really.
Yeah.
The first half is a
kind of horror as well. But, definitely my favourite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Predator.
Would you say it's his best acting?
Possibly
not necessarily.
No, I would say he's because it's
good,
the character. It doesn't require much, to be fair.
I don't think he. I mean,
I think he was
I don't think he's like, from an acting perspective, he's not like kind of. You can't sort of compare him to Robert De Niro.
Oh, no. But I mean, him playing a kind of like a special ops military guy. I believed him in the role.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's probably slightly more serious than when he was Matrix as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the scene, for example, before they go into the jungle, the scene where they're sort of talking with the general and with Dylan and stuff about why he's not assassins and things like that. We're not assassins. That line, I thought it was great. I love those scenes.
What I like about that film, it kind of starts off like a war. It's almost like
Terminator is his best acting.
It's like a war film, and then it kind of flips. I kind of like that, and I remember the first time I ever saw it. I liked because I like war films, and I thought, and then when it kind of changed and was a bit more, involving like something sci-fi like, alien running about, I loved it. Great film.
Yeah, because apparently they cast Carl Weathers as the supporting role because they didn't think at that point that Arnie could carry the film on his own.
Really?
They said they needed someone else that was had a little bit more.
Carl Weathers is good, isn't it?
Predator gave us the most manly handshake in cinema history, though. That was a great scene.
Big muscles.
And I'm sure most of you know this, but it's worth repeating. Obviously, Jean-Claude Van Damme was originally cast as the Predator. And it was a different suit.
He looked like a praying mantis.
Yeah, and then they kind of they weren't happy with it, so they got Stan Winston.
No, Kevin Peter Hall.
No, Stan Winston was
he designed
the special effects guy.
Yeah, he designed it.
Kevin Peter Hall. It would have been a different story if they had kept Jean-Claude Van Damme as the Predator was an alien. It was a terrible alien. Yeah. It did. It was. I think it might have been Steven. I've read that it's actually Steven Spielberg's idea to have like the mandibles, and that.
Yeah, because I think he was friendly with Winston, wasn't he? Yeah, I think you're right there.
And I think Predator. I don't know what makes Predator such a good film, in your opinion.
Well, I like the characters as well.
Yeah, it's good.
Obviously, the Predator at the end, when the mask comes off, it's good. It looks good. It's kind of like, whoa.
But you got the first half. It's the first half's all the suspense, isn't it? But especially when you haven't seen.
I like the aspect that it's got like war kind of aspect to it, but also I think the characters really gel well together.
And they're very defined.
Yeah.
So each of the characters, I think, has got, you can kind of know who they are. You get a very good sense of who they are based on the short time that we sort of spend with them.
Billy, I like.
Yeah. And Hawkins, who was actually played by Shane Black, because it was obviously the script was written, but apparently the filmmakers wanted, because obviously Shane Black, most notably known as a screenwriter, and they wanted him to be on set so he could punch up dialogue.
To rewrite something.
Yeah. So he was hired as the actor, but he was actually in on set.
Yeah, and he had, I believe he did it because that green lighted him to do Lethal Weapon. Because Joel Silver was just the same producer on it.
Yeah.
I think it was all to do with that as well.
Corporal Hicks says it's a great design. I'm assuming you're talking about obviously the actual Predator itself. Yeah, I do agree. It's they have kind of watered down, I would say, the Predator franchise as a whole in recent years. But
didn't like the last one.
No. Predator is great because the tension, you don't see much of the monster until towards the end, and the monster actually delivers. And he seemed like a threat,
It builds that threat and suspense. That's what's good about it.
Because he seems genuinely threatening, I think.
Yeah, and when you first ever see it, I remember when I first saw it, you get that kind of thrill, that kind of suspense, and a feeling of threat.
Because you've got to think, if you think Schwarzenegger movies up to this point, a bit of a musical interlude for you. Schwarzenegger's movies up until that point always had lots of disposable bad guys. Even the kind of like the boss fights with like Bennett from Commando was never much of a challenge. But in Predator, we've got a team of alpha males, cuts to them knife like butter, and it really does seem like Arnie has a challenge.
Yeah, he's actually in peril, isn't he? Rather than
the Dutch film buff, I think the premise itself is very cool. Predator is basically like Agatha Christie's 10 Little Indians, essentially. Yeah, absolutely. And then don't trip over the cables there. So yes, Steve has that. Steve's just had to go for a poop, so he'll be back once he's kind of had a poop and wiped his bum. Screenstars says. It was the first time Arnie had showed any real vulnerability in the movie out-muscled the Predator. Yes. So this
because it wasn't really a short. It was a Schwarzenegger film, but he was kind of matched with the Predator, really, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It wasn't just like they've done before, where it was just him kicking ass. It was kind of like I think like you say with the vulnerability side of things.
And the other thing I would say with Predator. If you watch Predator to now, it completely holds up. Do you know what I mean? I think if you were to watch Predator now, the effects all hold up to this day. I don't think there is a special effect which is really dated, with the exception of maybe I think Carl Weathers.
I think they've rectified that in the Blu-ray, haven't they?
Have they?
I think so. Yeah.
Have they? Yeah. I mean. This was my favourite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. Let's move on to The Running Man, which is based off a Stephen King short story. So Arnold goes back to genre. We're on The Running Man now. Did you watch your ends?
I think I answered the phone.
Sure he did. Jesus, Steve.
It was the phone.
So let's have a quick look at Arnold Schwarzenegger's Running Man box office. These numbers, by today's standard, these numbers seem really low. But obviously we have to bear in mind the time that it was come out. So the box office numbers for Running Man, the budget was 27 million. So it's a higher budget than Predator. Yeah, almost double. But the gross was just under 40 million. So it kind of made a little profit, but not a huge amount of money. The Dutch Film Bus says the second one holds up pretty well too. Glover in the urban jungle. That was like set in like 1995.
97
was it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good film. Not quite as good as the first one, I don't think.
No. I like the third Predator movie.
I didn't like it because they said it in the future, but it kind of like they had like just put adaptations on the guns and it just looked a bit But I like the actual Predator and the actual storyline's good.
Yeah,
it's still one of the better ones.
Yes, yeah.
And the sequels.
Yeah, I don't like the last one's awful. I think, especially the ending.
So, what do we think of The Running Man? I actually really like this movie. Directed by Paul Michael Glazer. Starsky from Hatch just points out there. So, what do we think of The Running Man? I know it's not particularly accurate towards the story, the original story, but having like a reality TV violent thing, I don't know. It's strangely kind of like I can see that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, you think of like UFC and things like that, and kind of reality TV. It's kind of the genesis of where that's going. Running Man could have been a Van Hoven movie. Screenstars said it's wonderfully over the top. I love it. I love The Running Man, and you know, again, you've got it's really like it's larger than life. It is somewhat of a B movie. All the kind of the gladiators are kind of over the top and things like that. You're not a huge fan then.
What's the name's back in it as well? Jesse Ventura's back in that one.
He is, yeah. That's one of the gladiators.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's all right.
Yeah, so kind of like a moderate hit for Schwarzenegger. The Dutch film said, as a kid, I always wanted to watch The Running Man for the violence and exploding head and stuff. Yeah, it was pretty violent, to be fair. I kind of remember thinking that when I was a wee boy as well. And there was talk of a sequel to that, I believe.
Yes, didn't he wrote some more books, didn't he, around the same character?
And then, so The Running Man was in 1987. That came out. And then same year as Predator. And then we also had the year after that, Red Heat, Matt. So Red Heat is the film where he plays a Russian policeman that comes over, which, to be honest with you, is a little far-fetched. More so than Running Man in a way. Comes over and teams up with a American policeman, Belushi, to track down Russian gangsters. What do we think of Red Heat?
Yeah, I like this is one of my favourites.
Why is it one of your favourites, Chris?
I like the I think it's the James Belushi. I think he makes the film to me.
Yeah,
I think they got quite good chemistry. Because some people say it's like a rework in the 48 hours, don't they? Because it's the same director.
It's a bit like that.
And Screenstars says it's basically a remake of Coogan's Buff. I think Arnold makes quite a good Russian, if that makes sense.
Because he's sort of playing the type almost in this film. Yeah,
I prefer the Russian scenes.
Or at the beginning.
Yeah, I actually like the Russian scenes, to be honest with you. Because I think it just feels a little different from the kind of like a lot of the kind of the other stuff that came out of the States and stuff. I mean, Red Heat is one of those. It's a bit like Raw Deal to me. Red Heat, where I like it, I enjoy it, but it's not to me one of the classic ones. But
I think it's an upgrade on Raw Deal, though.
Yeah. Did I look at the box office numbers for Red Heat? I don't know. I didn't. Let's have a quick look. So what do we reckon? Was Red Heat a hit or not? We'll tell you just a minute. But first, the Dutch film by Red Heat is just maybe a little underrated. James Belushi was a big star in those days too. I love the principal in those days. And then Screenstar says, I think Red Heat is very underrated in my opinion. Pretty grounded stuff compared to his other stuff. Yeah. You can't see a Russian cop coming over to the UK, to the America.
See Putin and having that.
No. So it's not.
That's what the 80s was about: Russia versus America.
So the budget was an estimated $29 million, and it only made $34 million on a $29 million budget. So probably made a bit of a loss when you factor in cinema, because you obviously got to pay the cinemas and stuff like that. So yeah, maybe not. I always used to think Arnold Schwarzenegger film was knocked it out of the park, but apparently not. So then we had Arnold's turn to comedy, his first comedy movie, Twins. So I like Twins.
It's all right.
This, to me, there's two Arnie's comedies that I really enjoyed. This was one of them. And this one is directed by Ivan Reitman. And this basically tells a story of twins separated by, experiments and stuff like that, played by Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger. There was a budget of $15 million, but made the worldwide gross of $216 million. So you can see why Schwarzenegger went on to make more comedies. Obviously, he's playing across type.
It's probably his first PG as well, maybe.
Yeah. And that's why, to be fair, I mean, obviously, when you make a PG film, when you make a lower kind of rated film, more people see it, and so more bums on seats.
Yeah.
It still has a little bit of action in it, but I actually really like the comedy in this one. Aaran said he loved it. That's film buff said he loves it. Corporal Hicks, Kelly Preston. Let's pour one out for Kelly Preston, shall we? Sadly passed away quite recently. But she was rather attractive in it. And like the scenes where, Schwarzenegger first gets his plums wet, Funny stuff. Aaran says supposed to be getting a triplets with Eddie Murphy. That's long lost brother. A Dutch film buff, Mischief. I don't know if a triplets film.
It's a bit late as well. Late in the game.
It's like it's one of those ones where it's I don't know. Some films I think are set better up for sequels than others, and I don't think. To me personally,
they've left it too long.
What do you think? What do you guys think about Arnold's? Did he kind of overdo too many comedies? I think that's the question there. But Twins to me was a good step. I think if he'd done Twins and then maybe laid off like Junior and stuff like that, and
I think with Twins he did it in between his action films, didn't he? So it kind of cemented it. He was really big then, at that point. I think the later comedies started to dilute his career a little bit,
But it seems because all of the kind of the action stars seem to do that, don't they? They seem to kind of even like the likes of Vin Diesel and Dolph Lundgren have done stuff like this, it's just odd, Let's talk about Total Recall. The Total Recall, let's have a quick look at the numbers.
I like Total Recall.
A budget of 65,000 million and a worldwide gross of 12 million, 261 million. So
so they're going up.
Yeah. So this is prime Arnie, probably prime Arnie at this point. Quite, to be fair, obviously this movie is quite a complex plot, and to this point, I would say,
it's got it kind of reminds me, the effects and stuff reminds me of RoboCop.
Same director.
So same director, Paul Verhoeven. Get your ass to Mars.
Yeah, it's a bit when he pulls that thing out. He goes,
It's a great movie.
It's good.
And the whole thing of you don't quite know what's real and what isn't, and what's really kind of in an implanted memory and stuff like that.
It's another quite violent one as well, wasn't it?
Oh, Mischief was the movie where we could see Kelly Preston all the way in the nude, by the way. Let me just add that to the list.
Mischief.
Aaran says a great ultraviolet fun film with great effects in that time too. Yeah, again, it's one of those films where that's a good example of where they did not need to make a remake. But they did. For some reason, but that was a great film, and
in the remake, was it got a girl with the 3 boobs?
I think it has.
I've never seen it. They diluted that, didn't they? So it was 12 on it. So
I don't know if she had them out, but I think she might have had.
Yeah.
But the girl with the 3 boobs, one of the more iconic shots from that one, and that Quaid.
What was his name?
Quaid.
No, the creature.
Oh, well, I can't remember now. But, Aaran says the remake is terrible that stars Colin Farrell replacing Arnie. Yeah. Why do they? I just don't know. It's like, why make it? It doesn't make any sense.
Why make it so close, really? It's not as if they left it like years and years, is it?
The Dutch film buff says Total Recall is probably my favourite Arnie movie. Yeah, it is a good one. And obviously, it's the early role for Sharon Stone as well. Really, before she kind of like became like a huge star with like Baker.
Then you had some good people like Michael Ironside and people like that. In there.
Yeah,
some good support.
He loses his arms, doesn't he?
Mm.
Yeah,
that's bad.
And then I remember the eye popping scenes always used to kind of slightly gross me out.
What is it? The atmosphere.
Like one of those Ghostbusters toys you used to be able to get.
I wish I could. Could you do an Arnie impression?
That's about it.
I can't. I wish I could. Anyway, I'm sure you don't want to see us just
He
screaming.
does the same bit when he falls down the thing in Predator, doesn't he? Slips down that mudslide and it's like
We've lost two viewers because we're doing Arnie impressions. So you went to party, Richter. So he ripped his arms off. Nice. All right, yeah. So let's move on to Kindergarten Cop. His next comedy, although a little bit more action orientated than I think the rest of his comedies. Once again, directed by Ivan Reitman. And let's have a quick look at the box office. So it was a 50 million budget, so not a huge budget on this one, but it still grossed 200 million, so still a big hit. Started off as a relatively straight action film, but then was quite a charming film, having obviously Arnie being kind of, having to be sort of act like a teacher essentially and having to look after other kids. What are your thoughts on Kindergarten Cop?
I didn't mind that one, but I prefer Twins.
Yeah,
Twins is the best comedy.
Although I like this. This had actually a little bit of a kind of action in it as well. Dutch film fan, not a fan of the Kindergarten Cop. I think that's the Kindergarten Cop is great to watch clips of. I think
it's okay. It's kind of it's not that memorable.
Again, that's when he was starting to sort of really kind of appeal to the wider audience.
Yeah. Aaron says, I'm assuming you're talking about Total Recall with this one. I think this film has shown his best acting chops of the career at that point. I'm assuming we're talking about Total Recall on that one. Okay, we will. Has anyone got any comments about Kindergarten Cop before we move on to Terminator 2? Let's have a look. I would assume
that would have made quite a lot.
No Kindergarten Cop. Okay, well, let's move on to Terminator 2.
That was just nice growth.
Terminator 2, probably the biggest film, yeah. Let's have a quick look at the numbers. Once again, directed by James Cameron. The budget, $102 million, but grossed over half a billion. So 520 million gross. And so it was the year 1991. Yeah, so back in those days, that was some big figures.
Yeah,
it's a good film.
I would say this.
It won't let you chat, Matt. I can see that. I can see you saying that. Terminator 2, great movie. The first one.
Yeah, but, I would say this is him at his absolute peak. I would say.
Yeah,
after this film, is
big budget film.
I think when he kind of went
good
slightly down after that, there was his.
I think this is the first time as well where trailers really started to ruin like plot points, because the whole point of the movie was you're meant to think that Robert Patrick's Terminator, because he was looked like a cop, was the good guy, and when they have that kind of first confrontation, you're meant to assume that Schwarzenegger is once again the bad guy, but that doesn't.
Do you remember that nurse who looks like Jim Edwards?
But yeah, it was great. One of the best, I think, science fiction movies, and shut up. Sorry. T2 is the top of my films of the decade. One of his best. Yeah, it's obviously it's a watershed moment, certainly in special effects and stuff like that. I mean, what do you think of Robert Patrick as the T-1000?
Yeah, he was okay.
They deliberately didn't want to cast another muscle man. They wanted him to be more sort of cat-like, apparently, and so he could kind of like.
Yeah, because who could they cast anyway? Really, sort of. I don't really know, to be honest.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's good.
I love Robert Patrick in this movie. It's a shame he never really got as big as Schwarzenegger. And again, the effects. This was one of the pioneering effects with the kind of like the morphing technology. I have mixed feelings about morphing technology. This movie, because of the subject, because it's like this liquid metal, I think it works well. But morphing technology has dated very, very badly in other films. But I think this movie it still holds up. And then we had a few kind of like weird TV kind of appearances from Schwarzenegger. I think his next proper film, let's have a quick look, was The Last Action Hero. So this one just go on pre-order on Zavi on Steelbook, which I have ordered. Did you order that?
Oh yeah,
sold out now, mate.
Is it? No, it's not one of my favourites, to be honest.
Let's have a quick look at the numbers. So, $85 million budget, $137 million gross. Not a flop, but it wasn't like it wasn't a particularly big hit. Certainly considering where he was in Terminator.
I think the reason, I don't know, I thought probably the storyline, I think, hindered it a little bit.
I think the story was too meta for the time.
Yeah.
I think this day and age, with movies like Deadpool and stuff that have come out, and in the internet age, it would have been better made now. But I think people didn't really get the joke back then. I actually quite liked. I recently watched and reviewed Last Action Hero not all that long ago, but yeah, I actually quite liked it. Although it is a little bit silly at times. You know, when you have got the cartoon cat and all that sort of stuff. And,
yeah.
But it's quite fun to kind of watch all the little references and things like that.
Cameos and stuff as well, isn't it?
Yeah, Aaran says it's a decent film. Just tried to be a bit too clever for its own good. Yeah, it's fun. There's loads of little cameos and stuff like that.
Was that PG?
Don't know.
I think so, yeah, PG.
It was more a kids' film, right?
Dutch film buff. I hated it. Then I actually liked it. I think I didn't love it initially.
It's okay.
Just do straight action. When I was like younger and when I was kind of like the heat of my kind of like, you know, mainstream Arnold sort of fandom, so to speak, I wanted him just to do action movies. And I wanted him to step away from comedy movies. And I was kind of like a little bit, I want to do that.
This is kind of a bit of both, isn't
it?
Still.
Although the kid in that movie is one of the most annoying on-screen kids, you know, that is ever been on screen, having recently watched it. So annoying. But on the other hand, Charles Dance as the bad guy, I thought was really good.
Yeah,
with his little kind of like glass eye and stuff. Right, let's move on from. Here's a movie that I bet no one's heard of from Schwarzenegger fans. In 1993, he did Beretta's Island. You ever heard of that one?
No.
Yes. So there he is, Beretta's Island. And he is in this movie. And it's got a 2.6 on IMDb, directed by Michael Priest. Let's have a quick look at the budget for this one, if we can find it. No budget information. And apparently he did this movie as a favour to his friend. But I bet you're one that it's never no one's ever seen.
I've never seen it or heard of it. No.
Dutch film buff, my girl too, the same kid, just the one. Annoying, very, very annoying, that movie. Okay, then we've got to talk about True Lies, 1994. A film which has been talked about quite a lot on YouTube recently. Budget of $150 million. Decent gross of $378 million. So, you know, pretty high. Second to this point, only to Terminator 2. So this movie has had a little bit of a kerfuffle because it hasn't been released on Blu-ray kind of properly. You can get a grey market version on the Spanish Amazon site.
Why isn't it released?
Because, well, there's two reasons. So this movie, right, was distributed by Fox, which now is owned by Disney. James Cameron, who obviously made the film, regrets his portrayal of Muslims in this film, right? Because they're Muslim bad guys. And hi Jeff. Nice to see you. Talking about Arnie. We're up to True Lies now. So James Cameron has gone on record by saying he regrets his portrayal of stereotypical Muslim terrorists in this film. And as such, he has chosen not to release it on Blu-ray or any kind of further media. You add to that Disney has now bought Fox, and it is now technically speaking a Disney film. There are some rights. I do think Cameron has special rights to the movie. Bronson's just joined working at the moment and on a bit of a break of sorts. Well, welcome to the stream. Let us know your thoughts on these Arnold Schwarzenegger properties. What are your thoughts on True Lies, people? Any thoughts on these ones? What are you guys' thoughts?
I liked it.
Yeah, I didn't mind
It's a bit. Some of the sequences a bit over the top. The action stuff, like when Art Malik lands on that Harrier jump jet.
It was sort of, it was like a big budget action.
And then
wasn't it?
they launched the rocket, don't they? It was on it. Yeah, it's a bit.
But you do have a very sexy scene with Jamie Lee Curtis in it. That's my favourite scene. But it also has Bill Paxton in it, who was one of my favourite actors. So yeah, this movie I don't know if we'll ever see a real like special, studio edition release of it.
Wasn't this film as well had a bit of controversy because something to do with it was too similar to the GoldenEye or something at the time. There was something to say that they had to redo bits. I can't remember if it was GoldenEye was too similar to that or vice versa, but they had to do rewrites.
I'm not sure. There has been talk of a True Lies TV series.
Because they were going to do a sequel, weren't they?
True Lies was a remake of Le Total, a 1991 French movie. Yes, I've never seen it, but I was aware that it was a remake or a kind of re-adaptation. The scene with Jamie Lee Curtis was very eye-pleasing indeed. It certainly was. She was and still is a rather attractive lady. I don't know if Schwarzenegger was quite as suave to play like this, kind of like obviously clearly a little bit of a kind of a take on the kind of the James Bond movie, but it was a sort of kind of return to the kind of the action formula, despite being a little bit more kind of polished and everything like that. But yeah, I liked it. And then one of the films that I truly don't like, Junior. We won't spend too much time on this one. Once again, directed by Ivan Reitman. Let me have a quick look at the box office numbers. Jesus Christ, the box office was $60 million. The budget of this one was $60 million. What the hell did they? I suppose Arnold's.
He got paid.
Yeah, he was like charging big bucks.
40 of that.
So it grossed 110 million. Not a good movie. Oh, Jesus Christ, that was a shit film. Only ever seen it once. We'll never watch it again. Crap. Does anyone like Junior? Is there any Junior defenders in the stream? If either of these?
No.
No, not a good film.
Like I saw it the once. And
Yeah, I've never seen it. I can't even remember it. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, this was like it was like high concept idea that was just kind of like it was terrible. Now it's worth mentioning that Arnold did the T2 kind of the 3D Battle Across Time, which was a short video that he did in the kind of some of the rides. I don't know if you have seen that. I've seen it. You can probably watch it on YouTube, to be fair, but it's not a proper film, so we won't kind of spend too much time on it. Let's talk about Eraser, a film that I think is pretty much erased from people's memories. 1996, directed by Chuck Russell. Let's have a quick look at the numbers.
Who else?
A budget of $100 million, and made a reasonable amount of money. 240 million gross. Vanessa Williams.
She was in Ugly Betty. Yeah, I quite liked Eraser.
James Corbin. They had these cool guns that shot through the doors.
Yeah, I quite liked it. I remember seeing it at the cinema. It was good. And then when it came out on video, they cut a lot of it out.
Aaran likes Junior. Get out of here. I'm joking. The Dutch film buff, Eraser. It's one of the, you never really hear people talking about Eraser. That's the thing. This was at a time where CGI was the thing, and we had a crappy CGI crocodile in it. Remember that?
Yeah.
Crappy CGI crocodile. People just, oh my, they discovered like computer generated. Oh my god, let's have it in everything. No.
What year was that?
96. So it was kind of early on. But yeah, it's a funny film because I feel that really very few people ever talk about Eraser. I never really hear it in conversations, but I do quite like it. I think there are some Schwarzenegger films that are forgettable.
Can you get it on Blu-ray?
No.
In America, you can, I think.
Get on DVD.
Yeah.
But I think it was cut when it came out on DVD. There was bits cut out of it.
1996 also had Jingle All the Way, which was Arnold Schwarzenegger's Christmas holiday. I like this movie. This is my go-to Christmas movie. Let me have a look, see if we've got any budget for it. So the budget was $60 million, and it made $129 million on a worldwide gross. So not a huge movie, but it was probably just about profitable. This was like a film that someone predicted the future, because this was really before Black Friday was a thing. And at the beginning of the movie, you had the scenes where people are just like trampling through the stores to try and find that kind of that Christmas gift, and it was so like almost of a prophecy of what was going to happen, kind of like years later when like Black Fridays that come out. But put the cookies down. I love her. I love Jingle All the Way. It's funny, and I think what I liked about that is some of the other characters are quite funny as well. Any Jingle All the Way fans here? These two don't like it, but I will defend it.
It's all right.
I like it. It's my go-to Christmas movie. No, does not like it. No one's a fan of Jingle All the Way.
Turbo Man, isn't it?
Turbo Man.
Yeah.
Turbo Man. Okay. Then we've got to talk about Batman and Robin.
Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, Batman and Robin, 1997. The movie that killed off the superhero genre for a short time. Leaning way too much into Arnold's worst impulses, I think, this movie. Directed.
He wasn't very good in it at all.
No, massively miscast. And I think on the wane of Schwarzenegger's kind of career, really. But where he still didn't know that, I got to say. People were still kind of like, I'm not as interested in Schwarzenegger now. And he could have made this, and it was a massive nail in the coffin. Do we have to talk about Batman and Robin? No, we don't have to talk about Batman and Robin if we don't want to.
But it wasn't just his fault. The rest of
the
guys weren't very good.
Dave Films says hello. Hello, Dave Films. Welcome. We are up to Batman and Robin in Schwarzenegger's career. But we'll move on to End of Days, 1999. So he actually had a bit of a break between them. So that Batman and Robin was 1997. End of Days came out in 1999. And this was Arnold Schwarzenegger's first horror film, so to speak.
Can you get that?
In America, you can, yes.
I quite like that film.
I like this movie as well.
Satanic type stuff.
Just in general, he just likes satanic type stuff.
But yeah, it was Omen.
For some reason, that movie leaves me cold. A little bit of a pun there. Love a razor. So, what do we think of End of Days? So, a movie where Arnold Schwarzenegger takes on the devil. The difference of this one is obviously it's not guns and stuff that will kill the devil. It's his faith that will kind of that will defeat the bad guys in the end. I do this. There was a movie called Bless the Child, which kind of was similar movies in a lot of ways, and I kind of quite like this cult because you never know who's going to be in the cult, and it had a little bit of a certainly obviously being a horror film, a darker theme. And I love Gabriel Bryan movie as well, who could have played the possessed kind of like person who was housing kind of Satan. That's Film Buff. It's not a bad movie. In the Days reminded me of Hellbound with Chuck Norris. Yes, I prefer this one, to be honest with you. But yeah, I quite enjoyed and I reviewed End of Days quite recently. That, of course, was to do with New Year's Eve. It's not like a New Year's Eve horror. And it was actually, obviously, from 1999 when everyone was kind of like worried about the Millennium Bug and things like that. Then I'll be honest with you, I have a movie that I have very little memory of, although I have seen it. 2000 saw The Sixth Day. Which was a return to science fiction. Directed by Roger Spottiswoode. Let's have a look at the gross of The Sixth Day. I have no memory of this film.
I don't
similar to Total Recall, isn't it?
The budget was 82 million. Ooh, and a cumulative worldwide gross was 96 million. That one did not make money. And that is probably why I don't remember it. Yeah, so I think I've seen this at the cinema. I might have even seen it with you. But yeah, 101 Bronzes, The Sixth Day is probably my least watched Arnie movie. It's one where he gets cloned. Yeah, I know that plot point was in it, though I couldn't remember one scene from The Sixth Day. But Jeff also says very underrated in my opinion. End of Days. It's got a lot of Arnie versus the devil. What more can you want? The Sixth Day is actually pretty good, says Screenstars. Do a review on that one. I think, because it's one of those films where it doesn't get a lot of coverage, so it might be worth revisiting for your neoclassic film reviews, mate. Yeah, I can't talk about too much about it because I don't really remember it, if I'm honest.
I've never seen
it. In 2002, we had Collateral Damage, which again was a movie that I think a lot was kind of flew under the radar for some people. I quite like this movie, however.
Yeah, I like it. I thought
it was good. Budget was 85 million, and it made a proper loss, 78 million. And obviously, when we're talking about grosses, just to let you know, so this movie grossed 78 million. That doesn't mean the studio gets that money. They get about half of that because the cinemas will take about half of that. So that was a big loss.
I think this is when he was at his lowest. Yeah, this is when he was definitely on the way, wasn't it?
It's a good film. I quite like that.
Mm.
I thought it was a good film.
Yeah, Jeff is another underrated one.
Wasn't it a film that got delayed loads, didn't it? Because it was controversial because of the bombing and all that. It was something to do with that.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And it got delayed, and I think that harmed it because it kept getting delayed.
What year was that one again?
2002, I think it was. Yeah.
Because of 9/11.
Yeah.
2001.
Yes, you're right. So I was just going to say there was quite a little bit of a gap between The Sixth Day and the Collateral Damage.
What was Collateral Damage?
Collateral Damage 2002 it came out.
Yeah, I reckon. I remember hearing it was they had to do some cuts and stuff, and they couldn't release it around the same time because I think it was in the can, and then so that would have probably hindered it.
Came out in April 2002. Yeah, but it's kind of like more of a straight action film. So let's quick look. So Jeff says another underrated one. I really like Collateral Damage. Screenstars, don't mind Collateral Damage. It's fairly decent. It is more action though. I I thought it had quite a lot of action personally, or enough to get me interested. Dave films Conan the Barbarian is definitely one of my favourite movies. Yes, it's obviously the film that really introduces properly to Schwarzenegger. Definitely a great sword and sorcery movie. Jeff says, I actually think Arnold does a decent job acting-wise in this, especially with his wife and child dying. You can feel the emotion there for sure. That's film. I agree. 101 Bronson. Hi, Mike. Hi, Mike. Conan is awesome. All right. So let's have a look. Then we've got his return. And I think this is obviously him trying to rekindle his career somewhat. Because in 2003, we had Terminator Rise of the Machines. Which has now been erased from canon.
I quite like Terminator 3.
The idea being, we'll have a new Terminator. This time it's a woman, or a female Terminator. The budget was 200 million.
Why did they erase it from canon?
And then the gross was 433 million. So it actually made a tiny profit, this one.
Why did they knock it off?
Because Dark Fate, which is the most recent Terminator movie,
direct sequel to Terminator.
So they've kind of they've ignored.
I didn't really think
3, 4, and the other.
I didn't mind Dark Fate actually.
I think they've done too many.
Anyway, we're talking about number 3.
Sorry.
Why did you like number 3?
I don't know, I just thought it.
I thought it went well as a trilogy.
Quite
I think
good,
it went
yeah,
well.
yeah.
They upped it there, personally.
Yeah, it's just quite a good film, I thought. And I don't know, I think the ones following that, they've just gone too, I don't know, it's just too kind of convoluted.
Yeah. Did you like the scene where the female Terminator pumps her boobs up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things I did hear that was obviously killing off Sarah Connor. I don't know if that was, off screen from cancer or whatever it was.
Yeah, well, I take she didn't want to do it then. But, it might have benefited with her being in it, possibly.
Considering 101 Bronson, considering the other Terminator sequels, Dark Fate especially, T3 isn't actually that bad. Dutch film buff. Just right away to say, Jeff. So, okay, so we got some Terminator 3 love here. I think you guys probably like it a little bit better than me in that case. I'm not as a big fan of Terminator 3. I thought the bad Terminator seemed somewhat redundant in that one, and it was kind of not enough of a, considering the threat that was the T1000. To me, it wasn't kind of like as a bigger threat. What did I like about Dark Fate? Hated it right away.
I wasn't a big fan.
And spoiler: John kind of died right at the beginning. Be honest. We'll come on to that. Let me put a pin in that until we get to Dark Fate. We won't talk about Salvation because, technically speaking, that was just a CG version of Arnie. He briefly appeared in The Rundown or Welcome to the Jungle, but that was just a cameo, so we won't talk about that. Around the World in 80 Days, never seen that. So, Kid at Night, never seen that. Let's talk about the Expendables. We won't talk about all 3. We'll talk about as a group. So we'll just talk about the Expendables as a franchise.
Yeah, I like it.
And then, yes, Expendables now. So we're talking about Expendables now. Rather than talking about all 3 films individually, though, because Arnold was just a really cameo in the first one and sort of supporting in the later ones. But what do we think of the Expendables as a franchise? Do we enjoy them? So the Expendables was meant to be a kind of throwback to the action-oriented films of kind of the 80s and stuff like that. Obviously, with Stallone spearheading this as Barney Rubble. What is his name?
Barney Ross.
Barney Ross.
Barney Rubble, yeah.
So what do you think of the Expendables films?
Yeah, I liked it.
All of them?
All of them.
Second one's the best.
Yeah. Second one's probably
First one was the first one was disappointing.
slow in places. First one.
You think so?
I think it's quite boring in places. It took a long time to sort of kick in. Second one was really good.
I like
Third one,
I like Chuck Norris.
Third one should be good, but storyline kind of let it down.
I would agree that I think the second one is probably the best.
Yeah, it's the strongest, I think, and probably the strongest villain as well.
Yeah.
Is that the one with what's the name's brother? Or was he in the first one?
No, Van Damme's in the second, and then
Mel Gibson in the third.
Yeah, I mean the third one should have worked with the actors in it.
Julia Roberts' brother in the first one.
Eric Roberts, yeah.
Eric Roberts.
Half brother. So Dutch film buff. I only like the second one. The best cast, the best director who understands how to edit action sequences and R-rated. 101 Bronson, love Expendables 1. It's my second favourite, especially because it has Van Damme in it. But 3, though, is just okay in my opinion.
I quite like Mel Gibson in 3.
I think the problem is with 3, they kind of dialed it down a little bit in regards to the violence and the kind of like the visceral style of stuff. To try and it focuses on a lot of like younger actors.
Yeah.
Well, the whole point of the Expendables was kind of like a re-teaming of the classic action heroes and things like that. I do like that they have some kind of like some B-movie actors in there as well. Like the first one had Gary Daniels in it, who was one of my kind of favourite sort of like straight to video kind of action movies. Scott Adkins, I think, was in one of them as well.
The second one.
Yeah. I do kind of do that. But the third one, I think they kind of took their eye off the ball a little bit and made it a PG-13 as kind of as Jeff's kind of said. But yeah, the second one I think was Van Damme and Norris. Norris was in the third one, wasn't he?
Norris was in the second.
Was he? Oh, okay. But obviously, I think Schwarzenegger. To go back to bring back to Schwarzenegger, the first one that's actually when he was still the governor.
Yeah.
He was still the governor of California.
Again, the second one, if you're talking Arnie, he was in the second one more than the other. I mean, he's not even in the third one much at all, is he?
Which is the one where he pulls the door off the car.
That's the second one. The third one he's not in a lot, and his acting's a bit hammy in that one.
Yeah. The first one he did as like a favour to Stallone, didn't he?
Yeah. Because they just wanted to get them three in a scene together.
Yeah. Though Bruce Willis not really part of that conversation, if you ask me. Really, I know they were the Planet Hollywood thing, but I don't think it was quite the same. Dutch film buff says Expendables 2 was also directed by Samuel Mason, who did Con Air. I love that movie. Con Air. The action scenes were much better in the first. Aaran is back in the room. We're talking Expendables, Aaran. 101 Bronson. The third one is where he does the "Get to the chopper" line again. That's one thing I hated when everyone did they changed all the phrases. Yeah. Oh, that was not that didn't work in my opinion.
That was the second one, wasn't it? Yeah.
That was one sequence where I just thought that was just so bad. It was just so trite. So to me, the Expendables is a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah,
to be honest, I don't think it does capture the 80s. If I'm honest with you, I think it's an enjoyable action film for what it is.
Yeah.
It's nostalgic. You get all the stuff
That's what
together, isn't it? Yeah. It's that kind of thing.
Would you like to see a fourth one? And who should be in it?
But there was rumours they were doing one, weren't there?
Yeah.
I think they're all getting too old, really.
I heard that what's his name was going to be the villain, Pierce Brosnan, but I haven't heard anything since.
And how old's Stallone? 75.
But he's still knocking out Rambo films, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
but when was that last Rambo film?
So Matt says everything from the Expendables onwards is awful. Are we talking just in life or in Arnie's? Yeah, so the Expendables is a bit of a mixed bag. I don't love them.
I like them.
The Last Stand, which was Schwarzenegger's return, his full-time return to acting. This came out in 2013. I own it, but I have never watched it, so I cannot speak to The Last Stand.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I've got it.
It's not that.
I've got it in America.
It's
He's
not
a cop, isn't he?
Dave filmed an awesome mask shirt. Do you want to show it off?
Yeah,
Pull forward a bit. Pull forward a bit. Thank you. Here he is. Yes, so Chris, we went out today to the shops and Chris was definitely wearing his mask.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, good shout. The Duff Film Buff. Jackie Chan would be a good addition to a fourth movie, I think. Aaron likes the Last Stand. I've not seen it. It's one of those things where I never got round to watching it.
In what?
He's in Jet Li you're thinking of.
No, he was going to be in it. He turned it down, didn't he?
Chris, you've seen Last
Stand.
What do you think?
Yeah, I wasn't a massive fan. It was had Johnny Knoxville in it, so it kind of ruined it for me a little bit. It was, it was okay, but again, it was verging on the comedic for me. It wasn't a great return to form for me.
So a quick look at the box office. This box office was 45 million was the budget, and it only made 48 million worldwide. So it was a little bit of a loss on that one. When you consider you're having to pay the kind of the exhibitors.
Well, how much Arnie got paid?
Well, not as much, obviously. If you can imagine what he was being paid.
Yeah.
He was being paid that for Terminator 2.
Yeah.
Easily.
Let's have a quick look. Everyone is saying. Dutch film buff. His best from the period after Expendables through The Last Stand. One of my Bronson Last Stand is one of the best he did since he came back to the movies, in my opinion. So I've not seen it, so I can't comment really. The Last Stand was Tremors without the cool worm monsters. All right. So yeah, but not a big hit. Not a big hit. And then he did Sabotage, which was kind of like his other film. I would say that is kind of like he did.
He was a bad guy in that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the protagonist, but he was a bad guy. And this was kind of like a fairly interesting plot about a group of corrupt police.
It's very violent, if I remember right.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it for ages.
So the budget 35 million. Oof, the worldwide gross 22 million. You've got to bear in mind this doesn't include things like DVD sales. Have to bear in mind and stuff like that. But
that's bad.
It's not good. Yeah, we made a loss in the cinema. But yeah, I mean, at this point, Schwarzenegger has kind of lost his luster as a kind of a film. He's not a draw. Like modern people, like younger people, aren't interested in watching Schwarzenegger movies, and then apparently not many of his older fans came out to watch Sabotage at the cinema. I think that maybe was such a different style of film for him, to be honest with you. I have seen Sabotage. I didn't think it was all that good, if I'm completely honest with you. Have you seen it, Steve?
No, I don't think I've seen it.
We'll kind of we'll skip over the kind of TV bits and pieces. Yeah. And then he did Maggie in 2015, arguably his other horror movie. Although
I haven't seen that.
This was more of a drama. So this was Arnold's attempt at serious acting. So this was, I'm a horror fan, so I obviously have watched this one. And it's essentially in a world where there's the zombie, there is zombies in it. And his daughter gets infected with the zombie virus. And she only has like a little while before she's dangerous. So she's kind of staying with her family. Her dad's played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't have the budget to this one, but it only made 1.5 million worldwide in cinema. Ooh. Although I got a feeling that was probably limited release. I don't know that was a wide release.
Did it come out in the UK?
No.
It was straight to video.
Aaron likes Sabotage. 101 Bronze Sabotage could have been better. Didn't mind it that much. Had some decent action sequences, but do you go for a poo again?
No.
Steve's just going to go for a poo again. So, wash your hands, Steve. All right? So, while Steve's just having a quick poop, we will talk about Terminator Genesis. A very contrived film.
Yeah.
So let's have a quick look at the money side of stuff. So the budget was shot up to 155 million, and you can see why they still make Terminator films, because the worldwide growth to this was 440 million. So it made pretty decent profits.
Yeah, it's not a bad turnout, is it?
Yeah. So Matt says the Maggie was something to do with Arnie not getting I Am Legend. Could have been, yeah. Yeah, I do remember that. He was attached to I Am Legend for a while. I do remember that.
Years ago.
Yeah.
And that was Ridley Scott was going to direct it.
Mm.
Yeah.
We should talk about his Crusade film. I saw that never actually happened. Maybe we'll talk about the end.
Sergeant Rock was another one.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, what do you think of Terminator Genesis? Didn't like it at all. I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
I just think it was an unnecessary film to make. You know, it was like trying to I mean, that's not canon now, is it?
No.
So they were redoing the timeline, weren't they? And I just think it was just unnecessary. Really.
They have made a hash of the Terminator timeline. To be honest, there's so many times now they've had to sort of restart it. You know. I quite like the idea they had the idea that it was like an app sort of thing. Obviously, that kind of ties in with the modern world and stuff. And then you had is it Jason Isaacs? I want to say who's playing John Connor. Jason Clarke, sorry. And the whole thing with him being like the.
It didn't work for me.
No, okay. So I've got the comments. Dutch film buff Will Smith didn't get the Heston one or the Price one. Dave film Sergeant Rock had potential, would have been cool. That's a property I'm surprised is, and they've never done it, have they? So they could still do that. Maybe not with Schwarzenegger now. But yeah, Sergeant Rock is maybe a property that they could still potentially do with someone. And then we had after Terminator Genesis 2017, we had Aftermath, which was a film that apparently he really wanted to make. I've never seen it. It's one that actually went straight to DVD here in the UK.
I've not seen that one.
And it was something to do with a plane crash. Yeah. Let me see if we've got any figures for it, although I can't imagine this being very big. But you can tell that the budget was 10 million. So you can see that Arnold Schwarzenegger has kind of lost his price tag. The budget of the whole film was 10 million, and it didn't even gross $1 million. In a worldwide. Oh, did we skip over? Have we skipped over Escape Plan? I think we might have done.
We did, yeah.
Let's go back to Escape Plan. Sorry, we did skip over that. Escape Plan. So I'm looking at his filmography. They've got all his things that he's done for commercials and stuff like that, and I've just kind of skipped over it. Right, Escape Plan, where he started properly with Stallone. Let's have a quick look at the numbers. Budget was 50 million, and it made just shy of 140 million. So not too bad money wise. Maybe not a block. Maybe not the kind of obviously.
I like this one. This is a good film.
Yeah.
Not like this one.
Not seen it.
You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it.
This is a good one, yeah. They've done some inferior sequels, but
I've seen one of the sequels to this.
yeah, it's just Stallone sort of not really, appearing.
Escape Plan.
But yeah, the first one I did like, because it had some quite good, like Sam Neill in it and a few others, some quite good sort of supporting.
How much of Arnie's in the film? How much?
He's in it quite a lot, yeah. It's more of a Stallone vehicle, to be honest. He's like the star, in a way. His character's a bit more prevalent in the story, but yeah, he's got a lot of screen time. Yeah.
So the Dutch film buff, the Escape Plan was pretty entertaining. Matt says, to be fair, if Arnie hadn't got into politics, he might have continued to be relevant. But it's still the new Rocky movies. It's true. Obviously, that break and probably direction is probably, I suppose, if you're going to get into politics in America, you're going to alienate half of your audience, aren't you? Because you're either going to be on the left or the right, and whatever side you're not on, they're not going to be interested. And then 101 Bronson, I really agree with that. I really like the escape plan. The sequels weren't that good, and they were also structured. Yeah, the escape plans. It's just Aaron just said the escape plan was pretty good, but the sequels are beyond terrible. 101 Bronson, love the fight between him and Sly. You hit like a vegetarian. I should watch that. It's a film that I own, but I haven't actually watched. And to be fair, I don't know really much about the actual plot of that one, although it's an escape one. But we'll kind of skip after Aftermath. I don't think anyone's interested in Aftermath. Has anyone seen Killing Gunther? Have you seen Killing Gunther?
No.
Right, I've seen this one. This is one of those films where you've got Arnold Schwarzenegger on the cover, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's in it for 10 minutes at the end of the film. And we see his character throughout the film, but he's actually played by a stuntman, just in long shots. This was kind of a wacky comedy. It is pretty awful. There's one or two okay scenes in this movie, but like I said, Schwarzenegger is they invade Schwarzenegger's house, and he's Gunther. And the scenes with him in it are not too bad, I will say that. But getting there is it's a torturous affair. And Screenstars also says Killing Gunther an awful film. And this is not a good way to further your career. And I fear we see a lot of examples of this where
he's kind of going into that realm now, isn't he?
Yeah, Stallone does it, Willis does it all the time, Nick Cage. These guys, they're just taking these kind of like these B-movie jobs, and it's just not good. It's just not good. And then we had another one, The Iron Mask, which came out in 2019, I think maybe worldwide, but it's I haven't seen that. That one starred Jackie Chan as well. I've got a feeling, I watched the trailer of that film, and I haven't seen Aftermath. Oh, Screenstars says Aftermath is easily his best performance on screen. I know that's a movie he really wanted to specifically make, although I haven't seen it, so I can't comment. But maybe one day I will, Aaron, actually. But The Iron Mask, I saw the trailer, and it struck me that the rest of the scenes with Arnie and Jackie Chan look like they're in one scene together, and then the rest of the movie is nothing to do with those scenes. So I've got a feeling they've had Jackie Chan and Arnold Schwarzenegger in one sequence, and then to obviously put them on the kind of the poster, and then the rest of the cast and the movie, nothing to do with it, or very little to do with it. I've not seen it, but it's not a film that I particularly want to watch, to be honest. Has anyone seen The Iron Mask? Which I think is also known by another name, which I will...
Wasn't it a foreign film? Wasn't it,
Mystery of the Dragon Seal is also known as. Let's have a quick look. But it just looks... great. Schwarzenegger and Jackie Chan in one movie. Sounds fantastic. It looked like it was like a Chinese fight film. So it was filmed in Russia, China, and the States, but it was primarily a Chinese movie. Budget-wise, $50 million and made less than $9 million. It's partial. It was partially filmed in Russia, but it looks awful. Don't ever want to see that movie. And then Terminator Dark Fate. Okay, let's talk about this one. So this was the kind of the latest movie. Now, I agree. I think killing John Connor was the wrong move. Especially right at the beginning of the movie. And I think the sequence looked good in regards to because obviously Edward Furlong wasn't there. And they kind of digitally made him up. I think the sequence looked good. But I was expecting to hate this film, to be fair. And I didn't mind it. I actually quite liked the kind of like the augmented female. I don't know what her name was. So Grace, but by Kenzie Davis. I actually quite liked her, to be honest, and I wasn't expecting to. I do think that kind of the stand-in for what they had, like the Mexican girl, whatever it was, who was like the new John Connor, seemed kind of stuff like that. Killing Gunther was terrible. Brian, terrible film. Killing Gunther.
I think we don't get into Dark Fate. I think it was. I think having Sarah Connor back in it helped a lot.
Yes,
I think she carried the film. Arnie, he sort of sleepwalked through it, really.
Oh yeah, but I didn't mind it. I liked Sarah Connor in it, and obviously Linda Hamilton. I think
she actually got higher billing, didn't she?
Yeah, she's a main character.
Yeah.
To be fair, Schwarzenegger isn't. He's
I
not
think
really.
The fact that I think it because he has sort of grey hair in it, and it kind of I don't know, it just loses its. To me, it just loses its punch.
Yeah. So let's have a quick look at what people think. So Emery said, "What do you think on Killing Gunther?" Yeah, terrible film. To be honest with you, I like the bits with Arnie in it, but it's like 10 minutes at the end. Screenstars, I really enjoyed Dark Fate. That was a good 10 minutes. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
and I'd actually say to me, it was the third one I liked the best out of the first two, then this one. I quite like Salvation, to be fair, but that was more of a spin-off. I missed what you guys said about Red Sonia. A bit cheesy, to be honest, and more or less it was a Conan film, or at least it should have been. And then we've got anybody who's enjoyed Dark Fate. 101 Brunton, I think Dark Fate for me just pushed the agenda too much in regards to a strong female character, if that makes sense. Yeah, identity politics, I wish that wasn't really a thing that had to be so, I don't want to make this a political topic, to be honest with you. I didn't think it did it as much as I thought it was going to do, which is why I think I didn't mind it. Because I was ready to hate that film. I just thought I was going to hate the Grace character.
Yeah, just in another
installment. But I didn't mind her, if I'm honest. I just it was never like to me it was never maybe because I thought it was going to be so bad, and to me it wasn't. I didn't mind it as much. Matt loved Dark Fate, and they could have Game of Thrones Connor. Yeah, I knew. Unfortunately, that was spoiled for me before I'd seen it, so I kind of knew that was going to happen. But I liked this sequence. I thought the sequence was well made. It was kind of like, it looked good. And I liked I thought Linda Hamilton's acting was good in it. And I liked when she saw Schwarzenegger's character again, like that while later. She just kind of like went for him. That was quite good. But I don't know where they go with the Terminator franchise from this. To be honest with you, because there is talk of another one. So we'll see. So let's talk about where we're going in the future, because today that is the last cinematic movie that stars Schwarzenegger. He is in a TV show called Superhero Kindergarten, and he voiced Dutch again in the Predator Hunting Grounds video game. So on his IMDb, he's got Kung Fury 2, where that's in post-production and he's playing a president. Although that's not that was like an internet film, so that's not a proper one. Kung Fury 2, that is. Triplets, which we've already talked about. The Legend of Conan has been announced, and Outrider TV series has also been announced. We've mentioned a couple of movies that he could have been in. So one of these like long gestating movies that Schwarzenegger was very keen on was to make a Crusades movie. And we've seen a Crusades movie in Kingdom of Heaven, which starred Orlando Bloom. And I think that was such an epic film. It's kind of like, I don't know, what would you do with it? And there's been other Crusades movies. The Last Templar, I think it was called, was also quite good. I don't know. Without making it a cheesy action, I think the problem with the Crusades, it has religious overtones, and obviously it maybe is a little bit of a touchy subject. Obviously, we've mentioned Sergeant Rock, which is what he could have been. Is there any other projects that you would like to see Schwarzenegger in? Is there any kind of things that you think he would do good in? And any sequels to his previous works that maybe you think he should make, or should he be in for example, a Marvel film, and then who should he play? For example, I thought he might have made quite a good Colossus. I really want to see King Conan 3. I don't care how old Arnie is.
That would be good.
Yeah, I think because if you're making Arnold, if the character's obviously meant to be old, that can go with it, I think. And I'm not objected to where they have obviously we're not expecting a full-on action film if obviously someone's that old. One of my brothers looking forward to Triplets. I've got to be honest with you, that one doesn't particularly interest me. If I'm completely honest with you. So what's everyone's favourite Schwarzenegger film? So for me, it's Predator. But Predator. Anyone got any difference on Predator? Is anyone Terminator man or a Commando fan? What's your favourite? If anyone got any questions as well about Schwarzenegger movies or anything like that, chuck them through. Now's the time. I'll be honest with you, I thought Schwarzenegger, having done this stream, I realised he's had more misses than I thought he had, to be fair.
Yeah, I think the early 90s seemed to be his...
So one of my brothers, Terminator is his all-time Arnie favourites. Aaron's is Predator. Matt's is Total Recall or Running Man. Yeah, I do like one of those films, to be fair. But for me, it is Predator. I love Predator, and I think he could return to that franchise, to be honest with you, but maybe not in a kind of like an action role. Dave films, I'll pick Conan. Which Conan, Destroyer or the Barbarian? They did actually do a TV series of Conan as well, just to point out. They did a spin-off TV series that starred Ralph Mueller, who is actually a big friend of Schwarzenegger's.
They also did the remake, didn't they?
Oh yeah, with Jason Momoa. Yeah, I forgot about that. I would like to see him doing some Unforgiven like Western, where he would play along an aging bounty hunter or something like that. Something that suits his age. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, obviously you've got Cactus Jack if you want to see him in a Western. Brian Enready says Terminator with Predator in second. Dave films Barbarian with Millis. Touch was great. Yeah, I mean they're all good ones, to be fair. So yes, for me personally, to me it would be Commando 2. I just think the story would work with Alyssa Milano playing like a woman who's in the kind of and that will talking about identity politics, that will fit in with the kind of all the gender kind of politics of today. But you can also have Arnie having to come to kind of her aid when maybe the kind of the government kind of forgets about her or something like that.
It could be like a Rambo, isn't it? Like they did with the later Rambos. It could work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah. Terminator is the one I really don't know, because obviously, I mean, looking at the figures that we've looked at, the Terminator films. Let me just check Dark Fate's numbers. Actually, I don't think I did that. Terminators do make reasonable money, and that's clearly why they keep making them, even despite them being like, diminishing returns somewhat. So the last Terminator was $185 million budget and made $261 million. So it wasn't brilliant, mate. Do me a favour.
Great thing.
Just drop that, cheers. So yeah, so that last Terminator, money-wise, it probably still made a little bit of a profit, but it wasn't much.
So maybe that's a franchise they might think about stopping. Maybe.
Yeah, possibly. I think what they might end up doing with Terminator is literally rebooting it. To be honest with you, from start,
Well, what's the point?
Because I think the Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator run out of steam.
Yeah, but
And
just leave it as it is.
they're going to do it though, are they?
That's Hollywood makes money.
Yeah, that's what I hate all these reboots.
Commando 2, I agree. I'd like to see that. Another Conan the Barbarian over the Destroyer. Dacum lives Predator, and Commando is great too. He loves Predator. Yes, sorry. They are, I know, because obviously Disney now owns Fox, which means they own the Predator franchise. Disney's Predator, everyone. But I think they are making, because they're making an Aliens TV show, and I believe there is plans still to make another Predator movie. And they might, as Screenstars, another parent in the Predator film, they would love to see, because he did the voice. Do you know what? He did the voice in the game, didn't he, for his character? And you might feel that might be a little bit of a preview to what he's going to do. Commando's also a Fox movie, or as is True Lies now as well. The Dutch film buff, they should do a Predator where Glover teams up with Arnie. We're not too old for this shit.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. They really are, though.
Yeah,
they really are old.
Gary Busey as well.
He's chopped in half, isn't he?
He's dead. Yeah.
Is he?
Not in real life, but his
Yeah,
character
yeah,
is.
yeah.
He died, didn't he?
Good point.
They can stitch them back up together. Okay. Any other questions about Schwarzenegger or anything else that you guys wanna? What you guys up to on this Saturday early evening here in the UK? We've been out shopping, and Steve bought some flowers. Chris bought some Blu-rays. I bought some bath salts. So there you go. But other than that, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger's kind of filmography kind of wrapped up. So, any other kind of questions anyone wants to ask about Schwarzenegger? Let's have a quick look at some fun facts. Actually, why don't we do that? And then see if we can have a bit of a laugh.
We should do a Stallone one next.
Stallone. Okay, let's have a quick look. So we can find some fun facts about Schwarzenegger. He was born in 1947.
His dad was in the Austrian SS, wasn't it?
He was. His middle name is Alois. I can't bother to read all of this.
What's his middle name?
Alois.
Let's have a look. Which is Adolf Hitler's father's name.
Is it?
Yeah, Alois.
There you go. So obviously, yeah. He's now related to Chris Pratt, who's married his daughter. Trademark phrase, I'll be back. Editing videos. All right, guys. Well, look, that's it. We'll wrap up the stream. Thank you all for watching. It's been fun talking about Arnie. And sorry about all the kind of like the faffing around at the beginning. Oh, I have not got my head around having to do these bloody live streams. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Appreciate your time and have some great evening. And see you later. Bye.
Bye.
We'll be back.